You alright guys, what is up? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We are here for, of course, the UFC Vegas 35 preview. A bit late, a couple of technical issues, I do apologise, but we're here to preview a fantastic card, a fantastic main event, and one that I'm tremendously looking excited for. We have Edson Barboza versus Giga Chikadze, two of the most violent men in the UFC and in the featherweight division, of course, both top 10 competitors looking to push on and, go on for title contention, but these two are in a main event. Giga Chikadze's first main event, of course. Barboza's been in this position before. He's the veteran of this game now. Former lightweight, of course. He had a rough start, of course, in the featherweight division. Split decision loss, I believe, here and there. One that he thought he'd won, of course. And he was a bit angry, and I think he asked for his release at one point. But he resolved that, and of course, he come off that phenomenal win against Shane Burgos. That quite eerie knockout, the delayed reaction from Shane Burgos. But Edson Barboza is here to stay in the featherweight division. And of course, there was many questions, as to how he could get down to 145. Being such a big 155 or small 155 that you could say. A lot of people were expecting him to go up to 170 maybe if he was going to change divisions. But he's come down to 145 and looked good, and he's put two wins together now. Makwan Akimani, of course, and that third round finish of Shane Burgos. He's an absolute stud. Giga Chikadze is obviously coming to the UFC. He's 13-2. Absolutely, phenomenal stud. Similar to Edson Barboza, fantastic striker. And of course, he come from Glory Kickboxing. So he is, predominantly a striker. But again, he's put on a fantastic performance. Most recently against Cub Swanson, that first round knockout. A fantastic legend of the game and of that division. Ticked off the list, and he's got another chance using that, of course, it's first main event, as we mentioned. It's first time going 5 rounds, at least within the UFC, and it's the biggest stage of his career so far, you could say. So yes, I am looking forward to this. I think this is going to be the perfect fight. If you give me two styles, I want to match these two together. The only question or caveat would be maybe not too soon in Giga Chikadze's path in the UFC and in the featherweight division, but I'd like to see this, third and fourth in the rankings, fifth and sixth in the rankings rather than ninth and 10th, because these two are on very good paths towards a title challenge. Now, of course, you've got Brian Ortega versus Alex Volkanovski in September, of course, at UFC 266, sorry. Getting lost track of the numbers. Of course, we've got Max Holloway and Yair Rodriguez still to be announced. We've got Chan Sung Jung, and Zabit Magomed maybe still to come back, we don't know. But this division is a top division, and it's got some killers in it. And as we mentioned, with Alex Volkanovski and Brian Ortega at the helm. And of course, we've got the tough finale tonight as well with the bantamweights, middleweights. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But to keep it back to the featherweights, as we mentioned, Edson Barboza, absolute legend. He's got leg kick knockouts, he's got head kick knockouts. He's dangerous. All throughout the fight. He can take a cut, he can take a beating and still come back. He doesn't generally, win one-sided fights. He can go through wars. And as I mentioned earlier, I think this is the perfect fight. I think this is this is going to be a fight where you introduce someone into mixed martial arts, whether it goes 3 rounds, 5 rounds, or it gets done in the first or second rounds. I think we're going to see some beautiful violence, similar to Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje comes to mind. Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier comes to mind. These back and forth fights, they're absolutely phenomenal. We look at it as a fight of the year contender, maybe even. It could be that good. Both of them possess incredible skill sets. Both possess similar skill sets in terms of the mixing up of the styles, the predominantly stand-in styles as well, with kickboxing and Muay Thai, and phenomenal striking for both parts, of course. But let's have a look at the tail tape, of course. 22-9 versus 13-2, 5-11 versus 6'. Inch reach advantage there for Barboza, and an inch and a half, just half an inch in the leg reach. So these are two pretty much identical competitors, identical fighters, and I do think we're in for a treat tonight in this main event. The only maybe one question would be the fact that it is 5 rounds. Maybe as a fight fan, you want it 3 rounds, so they don't have to exert themselves for those extra 2 rounds, or withheld themselves to those extra to get through to the championship rounds. We're left out there within the side of 3 rounds. Of course, it's in the UFC Apex, so it's going to be a little quieter. It's not a pay-per-view card, so there's no 15, 16,000 people. So we're going to be able to hear every strike land. We're going to be able to hear what's going on within the corners. And it's going to be a fantastic night, I believe. Of course, this card's kicked off now with the early prelims, but this main event really does get me, water in the mouth at the prospect of seeing two featherweights going at it, and a possible, possibly incredible fight that could definitely set one of these two onto the way of becoming a UFC champion. Of course, you've got Danny Gage, Josh Emmett, Arnold Allen, Calvin Kattar in that top 8, of course, above Edson Barboza and Giga Chikadze. But, you'd like to see matchups between anyone in this top 10 right now. Obviously, Max Holloway put a beat on Calvin Kattar and showed that there's levels to this. But if you put Giga Chikadze up against Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega, Korean Zombie, Calvin Kattar, you're tuning in. It's going to be a main event, or it's going to be a pay-per-view card, or pay-per-view fight on a pay-per-view card. So, maybe a co-main event or third fight in, you could say. But, Danny Ige is a good fight. Giga Chikadze or Barboza against Josh Emmett's a fantastic fight. When he does get cleared to fight, he's still been out since that Shane Burgos fight due to the injuries that he suffered in that bout. Arnold Allen undefeated, of course. So yes, this division is thriving at the moment, and I know it seems like there's a quite distinct difference between the contenders and maybe the rest of the bunch. I say Alex Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and Brian Ortega in that 3, and Yair Rodriguez and the rest maybe a step down. But, matchups make fights, styles make fights. And you get the right styles and you get the right mix together, you could definitely see Giga Chikadze, Barboza, whoever wins tonight, top 5, top 4 by the end of the year, I would reckon. And looking to maybe put on a title challenge next year. It's depending on how that goes, of course, we've got to wait for Max Holloway, who's probably the number one contender. But if it loses to Yair Rodriguez, who knows? So yes, that moves us on nicely, of course, to the Ultimate Fighter. Of course, you've got the two top of the featherweight division, Brian Ortega and Alex Volkanovski, coaching this season, and it's come to an end tonight. It's been a fantastic season. Maybe not the drama-filled seasons that we have been used to. There's not been too much back and forth between the coaches. There's a little bit at the start, a little complaint and a grievance between Alex Volkanovski and his team with Brian Ortega's and his team's lateness. And maybe lack of respect. Maybe I think that's what they're going to, lack of respect for the team of Ortega. And of course, if you remember, I think it was episode 3 or 4, would have been episode 4 going into episode 5. Brian Ortega's coach or team made a little bit of a snide remark in the Apex because of being 4-0 up, of course, against Alex Volkanovski. And Michael Chiesa had a little bit of the bite back. So it had a few moments there. The pranks were fantastic. The chemistry between Ortega and Volkanovski seems pretty friendly. There's no bad blood there. It's a competitive rivalry, and that really showed. You got the snake prank, you got the tire prank, and the clocks, of course, that Volkanovski poured on Ortega. Of course, Ortega, giving his money from the coaches' challenges to Volkanovski's team after beating him in the challenge. So it was one that. No, it flew by, really. It was hard to get into it sometimes. I actually binge watched the 3 or 4 episodes just because of the time in the UK. It's delayed 24 hours, so it comes out a little later in the UK, to the point where I've missed a couple. But I caught up, and of course we now culminate that with the finals between the bantamweights and the middleweights. The bantamweight final, of course, is Ricky TURCIOS, and we've got Brady HIESTAND, of course, in the bantamweights. 2 of Volkanovski's teammates, of course. In fact, he's got the whole 4 today because of despite going 0-4 in that first 4 fights in the series, he's won everyone since, other than one, of course, with Trayman Gore, who was unfortunately not able to fight tonight due to an injury. So he beat Gilbert Urbina. So yeah, that fight is no longer taking place, and Gore has actually been given a contract, and when he is fit and cleared to fight, he will be back. But you got TURCIOS versus HIESTAND. You got 10-2 versus 5-1. Now TURCIOS became a bit of a fan favorite. He's got that energy about him. He's got something about him similar to Tony Ferguson and Diego Sanchez. I think he's a little bit more, he's a little bit more clued up to that. But he's a fantastic competitor, fantastic fighter, fun to watch. He's got what seems to be a granite chin in his semi-final coming up. He took a lot of damage, and you heard Volkanovski saying, "Don't get reckless, don't get careless," but he kept coming forward and he put on a fantastic performance. And I think he does get the win tonight. He's favourite tonight, I think, at 10-2 against HIESTAND, who's 5-1. But of course, these two would have spent a lot of time together in the same camp, in the same gym, in the same house as well. So Brady HIESTAND will know what he's coming up against TURCIOS, and he too has got someone who's got heart, and he's a very skillful fighter. But I do think TURCIOS does get the job done tonight, and becomes that bantamweight Ultimate Fighter champion or winner. To have a look at the table, of course, we have got 11-2 against 6-1. 11-2 versus 6-1, 5-9 versus 5-8, both bantamweight. 71 identical reach between the two, and HIESTAND takes it off by half an inch. So yes, fantastic bantamweight bout. This is the third fight down from the main from the top of the card, of course, and I'm looking forward to see how they act. Of course, it's in the UFC Apex as well, so they're used to the surroundings, they're used to the environment. There might be a few more people in there, but if you hear the atmosphere that the rest of the teams were producing when the fights were taking place in the Ultimate Fighter series, it was phenomenal, the noise in there at times, and I think we're expecting the same tonight from whoever's in there. And of course, in the middleweight competition, you got Bryan Battle versus Gilbert Urbina. Urbina, the third brother to take part in the Ultimate Fighter series, and he's got the furthest, of course, he's got to the final. And Bryan Battle is someone who's, you can see he's quite, these are all tough guys, but there's something about him where he's got, not something that draws at the heartstrings, but something about him that just makes you want to root for him as well. He came off very well in the series. Obviously, performed extremely well in that finish against Petrosky, of course, who's also fighting on tonight's card. Fantastic finish he got, and shown his heart in that fight. He was controlling the fighting stages, and it looked like he was slipping away from him with a submission, but then he got his own submission win with a guillotine and progressed to the final tonight. So he's 5-1. He got Gilbert Urbina versus 6-1 again, both of them on the team of Volkanovski. So it can be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out. But I do think this one's the toughest one to call, I think, because I don't want to see Bryan Battle get a victory just because of how he showed himself up in that last fight. But Urbina's a very talented guy and a very talented fighter, so it's going to be a great bout either way. And as we mentioned, both 6-1, 6-1 versus 5-9, 2-inch reach advantage there for Bryan Battle, and half an inch advantage to the leg reach in Urbina. I do think this does go to 3 rounds. I think this goes the distance. I do think the bantamweight fight will probably see a finish in from Ricky Tertius. But Bryan Battle, Gilbert Urbina, I think they go the distance in the co-main event. And I'm going to put my neck out on the line and saying Bryan Battle gets the victory tonight as well. I think we're going to see a good, mature performance from him. But Urbina is certainly definitely one to watch, and probably, hopefully, one to keep in the UFC based on what we've seen of him so far in the Ultimate Fighter. Now, of course, you've got Petrosky versus Michael Gilmore. Michael Gilmore was, in fact, one of the late replacements in the series, of course, due to one of the injuries to one of the competitors. He lost, unfortunately, and they're giving him a second chance. He took the fight on 2 or 3 days' notice, I think, having stayed in Vegas, being one of the backups. He risked it, and he got the right reward in terms of being called up to the Ultimate Fighter. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful in terms of getting the victory in the Ultimate Fighter. But of course, you can see Dana White and the UFC are giving him his credit and his respect by giving him a place on tonight's card. So yes, it's going to be interesting to see what happens tonight. We've got Kevin Lee, of course, returning against Daniel Rodriguez in that welterweight division. Kevin Lee with a late replacement opponent in Daniel Rodriguez. He was supposed to fight Sean Brady, wasn't he? Coming into this, but unfortunately Sean Brady got injured. So you've got Kevin Lee at 18-6. It'll be interesting to see how he comes back. He's someone who can pull out a flashy knockout, or he can look very flat and selective. His performances are one end of the spectrum or the other. He never gets any consistency at the moment, but hopefully, he's been training with Firas Zahabi off at TriStar, of course. So it's going to be, it's an interesting bout to see, because he was someone who was once upon a time, touted as a future UFC champion. He's still got only luck and potential, but he's certainly run out of time, and a loss tonight against Daniel Rodriguez would be very, damning on his career. But yes, fantastic main card. We've got Jordan Mishat versus Makhloud Muradov. Fantastic fight. Obviously, Jordan Mishat very experienced, and obviously Muradov is 25-6. So that's a fantastic card. I think it's opening the card as well. You've got Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Alessio Deshirico. Deshirico is also coming on short notice, similar to Daniel Rodriguez, but a fantastic fight in that middleweight division. Sam Alvey versus Wellington Turman. You've got Dustin Jacoby versus the dentist Darren Stewart. Darren Stewart looking to get back some of the form from previous fights. He's off the back of two losses and a no contest in his last three. Obviously, one of those being Eric Anders at 185. He then went up to 205 for Eric Anders again and lost by decision. Very close fight, but you can see that Eric Anders might be just a little bit above him, 5 or 10%. And in this game, that 1% really matters. But it's going to be interesting to see just how he comes back. He's a fan's favourite in the UK. He's someone who's very likeable and someone you can get behind again. And it'd be interesting to see him to get back in the win column. And he's got a good fight in Dustin Jacoby. He's 14-5-1 himself. But obviously being the Brit and coming from England and London particularly, I have to back the man that is Darren Stewart, and I hope he gets the victory tonight. Split decision loss to Kevin Hunt. That was very close. Obviously the no contest from the illegal knee against Eric Anderson and a unanimous decision loss. Also, he's actually 1-3-1 in his last 5, so he definitely needs to get some victories and some wins back under his belt, and I do think he does get that tonight. But yes, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you guys for watching. It's been a little bit inconsistent on the channel. I'm actually moving house and, life, etc. So we'll be getting some consistency soon, hopefully a new setup soon as well. And yes, so make sure to hit the subscribe button. Get your predictions down in the comments down below. Giga Chikadze or Edson Barboza, who you backing tonight? I actually am going to back Giga Chikadze. I think there's something special about him, and of course the array of talent that George is bringing through with fighters, 5, 6, 7 in the top of the UFC at the moment and working their way up through the UFC rankings. Also, so yes, make sure to drop this video a like. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and go follow us on CageChat MMA on the socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, of course. And I'll see you guys on the next video.